Hi there. This video describes how you can identify and correct sentence fragment errors in standardized English grammar. According to Kirshner and Mendel, a sentence fragment is an incomplete sentence, a phrase or clause that is punctuated as if it were or could be a complete sentence. Now there may be several possible causes of a sentence fragment. Your sentence may simply lack a subject, or may lack a verb, or maybe both. But most often in collegiate writing, the error occurs when a writer creates a dependent clause but does not attach or connect that to an independent clause. In other words, it's masking itself as a complete sentence when really it's not. Typically this occurs when writers begin a clause with a subordinating conjunction or relative pronoun and then do not connect that clause, introductory clause, to a main or independent clause. So if you begin a clause or a sentence with one of these words, make sure that you are connecting to an independent clause somewhere down the line. Otherwise, you've probably created a sentence fragment. Along with that, there are also errors that occasionally occur when students misunderstand the use of verbals. There are three types of verbals. It's a part of speech. One is an infinitive, and an infinitive phrase contains the word to plus a verb. So in this instance, I chose to listen to California Love. Or a participle phrase, which is simply an adjective phrase that modifies or describes a noun or pronoun in the main clause. And then finally, the trickiest of all perhaps, the gerund phrase, which looks like a verb, as most verbals do. It ends in ing, but it's actually functioning or working in the sentence as a noun or a noun phrase. So in the following examples, let's see if we can first identify what type of sentence fragment error has occurred. In this case, for example, Tupac is marked as a complete sentence. Well, as you probably can imagine, this does not contain a subject or a verb, and so therefore it's a sentence fragment. However, just because you put a semicolon into that sentence and then attach this phrase at the end does not make it any better. Remember that with semicolons, typically they connect independent clauses. And that second clause, for example, Tupac, is not an independent clause because it does not contain a predicate. And then in this third example, you're using the word although, which is a subordinating conjunction, to introduce a clause. And it looks like a sentence, it's certainly long enough, but at the end of the day, you're waiting for that other shoe to fall. You're waiting for the other part of the sentence, the main clause. And when you mark it as an independent clause, but it's really not, you've created a sentence fragment. Okay, so how do we resolve these errors? Well, one simple solution is to take the fragment and make it into a complete and simple sentence with a subject and a predicate. Most often you can just simply combine dependent clauses with other independent clauses that are surrounding it, or you can delete any problematic phrases, words, parts of speech, such as subordinating conjunctions, relative pronouns, or verbals, and turn the dependent clause into its own sentence. For example, in this case, we can simply add more material to that second sentence and make it a complete sentence. Similarly, with a semicolon and creating a compound sentence, that second clause now contains more information. It has a subject and a predicate. It is now a complete and independent clause in and of itself. And then in this third example, you can see that once again we're adding more material to the sentence, and now we have an independent clause at the end that the dependent clause, although Tupac always wanted to be a professional rapper, is now connected to, it's leaning on it. You've created a complex sentence. Finally, with verbals, you can see how occasionally this second sentence might look like a sentence, a complete and independent clause, but actually it's a verbal clause, or a verbal phrase rather. And so simply connecting it to the independent clause that came before it corrects the error. Thanks for your time today.